In the last 40 years alone, the time from which our first environmental laws were enacted, we have extinguished 50% of all species on Earth. Climate change is upon us, and the world's ecosystems are collapsing. One of the key reasons this occurs is because our laws, designed around an economic paradigm which is coupled with the destruction of nature, legitimizes it. In my career as a lawyer, where I advised investment banks, multinationals and governments, as well as grassroots communities and NGOs working to protect the environment, one of the things I learned was that our current structures of law are inadequate to face the challenges of our times. At best, it can slow the rate of destruction, but it cannot stop it or prevent it. Our economic paradigm is based on one key concept: the utility value of nature, valuing nature as a resource for human consumption. This is where terms like natural resources and natural capital come from. However, nature is infinitely valuable because it is the source of life. We cannot have a viable human economy that destroys the Earth economy because one derives from the other. The logical conclusion of this model is societal collapse. The EU has committed to an absolute decoupling of economic growth from environmental destruction. In order to achieve this, we need laws that recognize the intrinsic value of nature. Because in order to change the game, we also must change the rules that govern the game. Utility value translates in law as nature being property. However, this approach has some practical implications that make it virtually impossible for people and governments to protect nature using the law. The first drawback of nature being property is that the law doesn't recognize a relationship between us and the rest of nature, because nature isn't a subject of the law, it's an object, it's property. This means that there's no duty of care, and it means that there are no obligations towards nature. This leaves a basic premise that nature is unprotected. So environmental law has the impossible task of reactively legislating to carve out protections instead of proactively creating the frameworks that are needed to take us into a truly sustainable world. So we end up with a piecemeal legislative system that inevitably leaves gaps. Take biodiversity, which is largely protected through the endangered species system. These laws rely on our ability to accurately predict which species are under threat. Now, at the moment, scientists say that we're losing 1,000 to 10,000 times the backdrop extinction rate. This means species are literally going extinct every single day. In the time that it takes to do the scientific studies to update these laws, it is already too late. Another serious drawback of nature being property is that we're stuck in the planning and the administrative courts. All environmental issues are deemed to be planning issues, and the only conversation that can happen in court is whether the correct planning procedure was followed. Even if communities are successful, the very best outcome that can happen is that the decision gets reverted back to the planners. Usually it gets tweaked a little, and the development goes ahead. There is a presumption that says that all development is beneficial. However, communities have to prove that a development would negatively impact the environment, even though scientists say that it is almost impossible to quantify and prove these things due to the inherent uncertainty and unpredictability when dealing with interconnected living systems. The only other avenue left in law is after a disaster happens and people litigate. The courts will compensate for any monetary loss, but there is no obligation to restore nature because the law doesn't recognize the relationship between us and the rest of nature. And then there are problems with enforcement, with piercing the corporate veil, with the lack of flexibility in sanctions, and the fact that a model of law which is adversarial does little to uncover the root cause of a problem and to co-create solutions. Finally, it leads to an attitude of separation from nature, which is the root cause of our environmental crisis. Clearly, our structure of environmental law is inadequate to meet the challenges of our times. We need systemic transformation. The highest protection that the law offers is in the form of rights. However, this protection is only reserved for human beings and corporations. The law governs relationships. However, it only governs relationships between subjects of the law. So with rights of nature, we make nature a subject of the law. This brings in a legal duty of care towards nature, which also means that we will have obligations towards nature. So instead of saying that nature is unprotected and we carve out protections, we're reversing the premise by saying that all of nature is protected and we now carve out the level of human activity that is acceptable to maintain the dynamic balance. This then paves the way for a system of ecological governance that actually aligns with the way that ecosystems operate. It also takes environmental issues out of the planning courts and into its own forums, where we can get to the root cause of the problem and co-create solutions. Rights are a powerful tool for addressing power imbalances. Slaves and even women and children were also considered to be property under the law. Even the crime of rape was once treated as property damage under the law. We've given ourselves human rights, but human rights don't come in a vacuum. How can we say that we have a right to life when that which gives us life doesn't have a corresponding right to life? And it's a right to life, not a right to human life. And life is all of nature. So how feasible is it? Well, it's already happening. Rights of nature is the new paradigm in environmental law. At the national level, we have it in Ecuador and Bolivia. At the local level, in over 36 municipalities in the United States, including Santa Monica and Pittsburgh, also in Mexico City. In Africa, some countries recognize it through the legal recognition of customary law. And at the court level, there are various decisions around the world in places such as Belize, Costa Rica, India, and New Zealand. The UN also has a Harmony with Nature department, and the group of 77 nations plus China affirmed in a declaration not only the underlying principles of rights of nature, but also that in order to move forward as a society, we need to have economic structures that operate in harmony with nature. And in Europe, we are bringing a European Citizens Initiative. Here in Europe, we have participatory democracy. This means that citizens can propose laws. 1 million signatures across 7 member states can put rights of nature onto the legislative agenda of the EU. We have produced a draft law, a directive that illustrates how rights of nature and ecological governance can work at the EU level across different legal regimes. When the EU adopts a directive, it becomes law in all member states. We focus on the collective rights of nature, including ecosystems, species, and the atmospheric climate, also pioneering a new paradigm in climate protection. The EU set out in its environmental policy a vision of a circular economy where nothing is wasted and we live within planetary limits. In order to achieve this, we need laws that operate in harmony with nature. There are universal laws which govern all of life. When our laws are aligned with this, we create a cycle of peace, harmony, and prosperity for all of life. When our laws are not aligned with it, we create a spiral of destruction. All societies that have ignored this truth have perished. We have a choice.